Okay, so ASL is a full language with its own grammar and syntax, and it's not a signed version of English, which is a common misconception. There are signed versions of English, and they're called Signed Exact English, and they have other names. But ASL, American Sign Language, is different from that. It's its own language that is derived from French, actually, so it has a lot of commonalities with French word order. And one of the things that distinguishes ASL with regard to word order is that it does a reference to time at the beginning, and then the topic, and then a comment or predicate after that. So, for example, often you will have something like last weekend, movie, watch. So that would be last weekend, time, movie's the subject, and then watch is the comment or the predicate of that. Another commonality to ASL is the use of rhetorical questions. This happens a lot. So one of the things that I might say is, instead of just saying last weekend I watched a movie, I would say last weekend what did I do? Movie watched, right? Why? Because George Clooney is hot. Right? So the because isn't in there, and what you would have is the why instead. And that's a common construction. Um, every sign has 5 components to it. The first would be, or in not in any particular order, but you would have hand shape, then you would have palm orientation, location, movement, and non-manual markers, which are facial expressions and body shifts. Um, and so an example of that. So hand shapes are, common shapes that can be used in many different signs. For example, this would be a hand shape, the C hand shape. I could use that to say cup, for example, or cousin, or many different other signs. So there's also like a B hand shape. This would be walking, feet, behavior. There's lots of different signs that use that same sign hand shape. The hand shapes are not always letters. Those are just the 2 examples I happen to bring out. And then palm orientation is which direction your palm is facing. So this way, this is 2 people meeting is the palm orientation. Going away, the palm orientation changes. Deaf is the same. There's another example of the hand shapes. It's the same hand shape, but the palm orientation where it is in space is different. That leads me to location. So palm orientation is direction that the hand faces. Location is where on the body it would be. So these derive meaning. For example, the top of the head indicates male, the bottom indicates female. So this would be boy and this would be girl. And then, of course, what I said, movement, so how fast something happens or how hard it happens, derives meaning as well. If I was going to say slow, I could say slow. This is the sign for slow. If I was going to say really slow, I would go really slow, like that. Okay, so then also non-manual markers are facial expressions. This often indicates grammar, so if it's a question, it might only be on the face and not anywhere else. Like, in spoken language, you would have a rising inflection at the end. In sign, you would have facial expression, right? There are also some signs that have facial expressions that kind of are required to go with them. An example of that would be the sign for skinny. This is the sign for really skinny, and when you're signing this, you go. Sign for book, indicating how big the book is. This is a thick book, and you always go. So there are some non-manual markers that kind of go together, and then of course lots of meaning and lots of variation happen. So those are the basics of ASL linguistically. I'm sure there was more that I could say, but that I think